I mean, I didn't really know anything about California gnatcatchers before reading this paper that came out on them that basically said that they were not a valid subspecies.
In 2000, a scientist named Robert Zink and his colleagues wrote a paper that suggested that there was no sort of genetic distinctiveness to the Coastal California gnatcatchers, that basically they were the same as the ones in southern Baja. And since there's so many in southern Baja, the argument was, well, they shouldn't be listed as threatened because there's tons of these things.
And the more we looked into this data, kind of the more problems we found with it. And we found not only did they not look very hard at the DNA in the sense that they didn't look at that many places in the genome, they also looked in places that were unlikely to show differences at the level that we were interested in, which is the subspecies level.
And so what we did was we downloaded the data because they were publicly available and actually did really standard statistical tests that anybody studying population genetics of birds would do, and found that the ones in California are distinct. So the Coastal California gnatcatchers are distinct at a couple of the genetic loci that they looked at.
After we published our paper, one of the interesting things is it did elicit a rebuttal from the researchers we were criticizing, and in that rebuttal, they told us who the funding came from. And so it came from the toll roads, which is an organization in Southern California that has been interested in building about 88 miles of fee-based road through pristine coastal sage scrub in Southern California for quite some time.
We've never suggested that the developers had any influence over the science or read the paper before it was published. But when your funders have a direct stake in the results of your research, it's necessarily a conflict. And most researchers choose to explicitly state that conflict, but they kind of hid it in the acknowledgments.
So right after the researchers published their original paper saying the gnatcatcher wasn't distinct, it wasn't very long after that lawyers, including the lawyer that had secured the funding for the study, put in this petition to delist the gnatcatcher. And it went through a 90-day review period, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife decided there was some merit to the idea that these might deserve to be taken off the list. And so that triggered a year-long review of the process.
And they should come out with a decision on whether to delist them any day now. So.
This Mediterranean climate region is, one of like 6 or 7 or 8 of these particular coastal regions with this kind of climate in the world.
Coastal California gnatcatchers are total habitat specialists. They can only be found in very specific and unique habitat. It's this super biodiverse coastal sage scrub is what it's called. And when that sage scrub is developed, they can't simply go to the next patch of sage scrub because there's already gnatcatchers there. So they won't be able to set up a territory. So they'll probably end up in some marginalized habitat where they can't survive as well, they can't reproduce, and then they die. The idea to remove the protection from the Coastal California gnatcatchers is not because the Coastal California gnatcatcher is doing well or has recovered. The sole focus of removing it is because that author and his colleagues believe that the concept of subspecies is not real. It's a philosophical argument that there is no such thing as a subspecies, so we should not protect them. It's so unfortunate because they are distinct, as we showed, and they are very unique, and they are responsible for protecting the last remnants of this amazing habitat.
So I knew that Emily used the bird motif typically in her work, that was central to her. Coming to Occidental College from University of Wisconsin, where Emily is an assistant professor of printmaking, I became aware of the Moore Zoology collection and their wonderful holdings, and I invited Emily to come out and to sketch.
And in conversation with James, as he was showing me all of the collection and the different important species that are held there, he mentioned that this controversy was happening, and I was really taken by the possibility of major decisions around threatened habitats to be influenced by sort of this idea of false findings. And what we believe to be hard data in science could be directly manipulated to control the outcome. And as an artist, I began to distort the data, so using images directly linked with the papers, these scientific papers, that were difficult to understand, possibly didn't make any sense to begin with, and now I was further distorting them in the screen prints and in the artwork. So this room is made up of a sound component of specimens that are from the Moore Lab of Zoology collection, and then screen printed elements, which include the wall that is screen printed, as well as these silk bags. And inside the silk bags are cast resin birds, and inside each cast resin bird is soil, and it's a soil sample taken from the Palo Verde region of the California coastline.
For the Gnatcatcher, I had all these visions that I was going to make this symphonic music of like bird calls and this huge thing. And when I went there and I was considering the space, I really just wanted to make like a postcard. And I wanted to make this really small, contained little thing that lasts as long as you give it attention, and then it would go away.
You know, artists can take things into a realm that we just can't as scientists.
I think that the idea of, sort of coming at the same issue from two very different perspectives lends itself to like something really amazing, and I think that's what's been created here. I saw the work that she did, and it's both moving and beautiful.
Yes, we care about our coastline. Yes, we know that development impacts humanity everywhere, but that doesn't mean it's inevitable. And how do the structures that we have in place to protect this environment, how do those work? And are they functioning in the way that we want them to function?